Timothy Dexter, the stupidest investor in America. As the United States was being born, he was beginning his investing career, and he was so clueless he could not lose for winning. He turned unused currency into a fortune, sold cats, bedpans, and Bibles to the Caribbean islands, bought and stored all the whalebone he could find in America, sold coal to a coal mine, and then faked his own death. And he was so upset at his fake funeral, at seeing how his wife was not mourning enough for him, that he jumped out and started beating her with a cane in front of the 3,000 attendees. And when he actually died, he had amassed one of the largest fortunes in the United States. Or shall I use his self-given name, Lord Timothy Dexter. Born on January 22nd, 1748, in Malden, Massachusetts, to a lower-class family, Timothy quit school at the age of 8 to help out on their small family farm. When he turned 16, he was apprenticed to a leather worker and sent off to Newburyport. There, just up the coast from Boston, he met his wife, the wealthy widow Elizabeth Frothingham, and they bought a mansion together with her money in the nicest part of Newburyport. Now that Timothy was part of the upper class and a fancy man, he wanted to do what the other rich people did: get into politics and invest his money. With strong ambitions, his venture into politics was unsuccessful. Unless if you consider his appointment as the informer of deer, a worthless "please stop leaving notes and asking us about being in politics" position. This was a job from when the area was just being discovered, and the informer of deer was to look for deer to keep those around him from starving. Timothy would do the community a favor by counting and keeping track of the deer that were in town. Actually, there were no deer. When he turned in his official report, the report was unreadable, with the scribbles and incoherent ramblings of a man who could not read or write and did not know how to construct a report. Now he had time to begin his very stupid, full-speed-ahead career as an investor. It was the end of the American Revolutionary War, and Timothy had purchased large amounts of depreciated currency. This type of printed money was completely worthless at the time. His fellow wealthy citizens encouraged him to spend more, hoping he would ultimately go broke. At the war's end, the U.S. government made good on these worthless notes at 1% of the face value, but in Massachusetts, where Timothy was, they paid at original value. He had spent pennies for what was now worth dollars. This exponentially increased his wealth. This caused Boston high society to snub him, and he returned to Newburyport. Upon arrival, he gave himself the title of Lord and built an even bigger mansion. There, he would throw decadent parties with loads of debauchery. Craziness in the mansion drove his wife away. She spent very little time at the mansion, but his 2 children hung around for the parties. The children were described as a half-drunk, half-insane woman, and the son as a fully drunk, totally insane person. At this point, he had made so much money, he bought 2 ships and began an overseas trade business. Fellow socialites, as a joke, told him, "Send bed warmers to the West Indies." Bed warmers were great for New England cold winters, but would be completely useless in the tropical islands. And when they arrived, the ship's captain sold the bed warmers to the molasses industry for a huge profit. This pattern continued, and each item he sent to the islands made more money. A boat full of cats fixed the rat infestation. A boat full of Bibles sold to the missionaries. A boat full of useless whalebone was used by every stylish European for corset clasps. So, the recipe for success goes as follows. Collect a bunch of useless stuff, listen to people who don't want you to succeed, ship the stuff to some far-off place, and profit? He thought he was truly unstoppable. Timothy was not liked by anyone, and his public antics got him in trouble. He once groped a woman against her will in public. A very large, strong man saw this and grabbed Timothy, and he put Lord Dexter over his knee, and he spanked him so hard he needed medical attention. He had truly become unbearable, and some of his wealthy friends wanted him to fail so badly it hurt. So they said to him, "Send coal to Newcastle." At that time in history, it would be like saying, "Send ice to the Antarctic." Well, he did. The problem with sending coal to Newcastle was that it was the place that coal came from. It was the largest producer of coal in the world at the time, and no one knew until the coal arrived at Newcastle that the coal workers were about to go on strike, and what they would need more than anything was Timothy's shipment. Again, he made a fortune on the trade. What do you do next? Lord Dexter built a mausoleum in his back garden and filled the front yard. 40 statues carved of men who Lord Timothy considered to be great. Included in the statues were George Washington, William Pitt, Thomas Jefferson, Napoleon Bonaparte, and himself, of course. Lord Dexter's statue was the largest of them all, and at the bottom of his statue was inscribed, "I am the first in the East, the first in the West, and the greatest philosopher in the known world." Somewhere around this point in his relationship, he started telling everyone that his wife was dead. So when people would stop by to visit or see her in the mansion moving around, he would exclaim it was the ghostly apparition of his wife and she was haunting him. He was so very interested in what the public thought of him that he faked his own death and made plans for his funeral. He had everyone invited to his funeral, and when 3,000 people showed up, he was very happy. Until he saw his wife at the gravesite not mourning. He was so upset at this, he jumped out and started beating her with a cane. So it was a ghost beating another ghost at the funeral. Shocked crowd realized what was actually happening. They started to leave, and Lord Dexter told them it was all a hoax and it was actually just a party, so stay, party. They did. He was now 50 years of age. He began working on his literary legacy, an autobiography. Sort of. A pickle for the knowing ones. The problem with him being an author is that he still had not learned to read or write, and the book is a 44-page train wreck. He used capital letters whenever he felt, no punctuation, and the book, of course, became popular. A local editor complained to the point that Lord Dexter, in his second edition, added a page of only punctuation, 13 lines of periods, commas, exclamation, and question marks, and he instructed anyone reading it to salt and pepper this punctuation as they saw fit. 8 years later, Lord Timothy Dexter would be found dead. For real. His home furnishings were sold at auction. His wife and children got his fortune, and sadly, he was not buried in the mausoleum he had built, as it was actually deemed unsafe to house even dead bodies. 2 years later, his long-suffering wife died. His mansion still stands today at 201 High Street in Newburyport, Massachusetts. If you like this story, you can find tons of stories like this at Audible. There's a link below. I find myself listening to all kinds of biographies of interesting men and women. Audible has a vast collection of biographies and books for every interest. Thank you for listening, and subscribe for more stories the way I heard it.